thank y'all for tuning into my video. I wanted to go over a little bit about the spring setup that I was currently running and the new spring setup that I am attempting to fabricate to make work. Now, these are 14-inch Swift springs, 450 pounds per inch, and my old springs are right here. These are just your regular run-of-the-mill lowering springs. These were made by some off-the-wall company called Voglin. I don't really know the spring rate, but I do know that we had to put some spring rubbers in here in order to help the car stiffen up some. So we'll set these aside for right now. So what I've got is, we started with a 14-inch spring. Now, since the car was sitting at a beautiful level, I didn't really want to change that. I wanted it to stay the same, height off of the ground to where we still had good suspension travel, but I didn't want it to be so aggressively hard that, you would feel every little bump. So the poundage of these, I'm guessing, is anywhere between 270 and 290 per inch, but these are progressive springs. So as you collapse them, the rates will increase, and as they expand, the rates will decrease. I don't really know too much about progressive springs. This is the first time that I've ever really researched them. But our old race car, we ran 450 pound springs in the front and 325s in the rear, and it performed the best out of all the spring setups that we had. Now, I ran 550s, 450s, 425s, 350s, 220, 325s, all different style setups on the old car, and the 450 in the front and the 325 in the back was the best setup. So I took that theory, since we were running a Legend, now we're running a CL. So I've got these 450 pound springs on my stock original strut with no, coilover kit. Due to Chump Car's rules, if you have a coilover kit, which is adjustable suspension, you get docked points. So we have to keep our point value as low as possible. So I'm still using a stock style non-adjustable strut, which these are the orange Coney, the SRTs. So we bought them. We were going to go with Bilstein, but Bilstein didn't have any in stock. So the first issue we ran into were these top hats right here. So if you see, we have the top hats, and this is a 5-inch diameter, and then as you taper down, this is like 2 3/4 of an inch. So if you look at that, we have an issue because we have 5 inches of space in a 3-inch spring. The other issue was the base down here. A 2.5-inch spring won't go over this lip, but a 3-inch spring wants to try to hang over here. So we had to fabricate an additional little tab just to help catch the edge of the spring. So you can see here that this really doesn't look like a problem, but the reason it's sitting sort of where it needs to sit is because we wrapped a hose around this side to keep it from sliding in anymore. As you can see, it's pushing on that area right inside there. So that's what we're doing to try to keep the spring centered as far as the bottom of the strut is concerned. Now up top, what I did was I took the top hat here and I pulled this rubber out and I cut this lip. You can see that lip of rubber. If you pull this out, you get it out, cut the rubber off, flip it around, push it back in, and what I did was I grooved the back side of this 3 inches. So I made a 3-inch indentation on the back side of it. You could theoretically do it to the front if you want, but the back side is easier, and I'll show you why. So I have the rubber taken out. Now if you look at it, you can see the shiny spot, the indentation of where the old stock spring was. And if you look at the back side, you have all these little cutout fingers. Well, the fingers, those little indentation where that looks kind of like your fingertip, that's where these lined up. So what I did was on the one that I've already made here, this is about 3 days worth of work into that one strut, believe it or not. Just trying and testing and fitting and it not working and frustration and walking away from it. So you cut that lip off, cut it off flush with this, flip it around, put it back inside of here. It'll drop down further than what it is. Then I went in with a razor blade and I cut the raised spot here and here and here all the way around until basically the low point of this would be matched right here. So it would just all look like one big smooth indentation. And what we're trying to get, if I can do this, you basically take your spring and set it in there like so, and you can mark all the way around it and then take your Dremel or your grinder or whatever you want and router out the rubber to where the spring then fits into the groove. Because the 5-inch spring, like on that one, it fits in that groove and it doesn't move side to side. That was the first issue that we had. We didn't do it and then the spring wouldn't sit true in the top. So we want the spring to sit center. And the reason it doesn't sit center is because the bottom of the spring wasn't made like this. The bottom of the spring was made like this. So this is flat. Now, the original style setup for this was made, I've got some schematics here. You have a, what do you call that? Tangential end, where one end is flat and one end's got a pigtail. You have a square end where it's got the coil part, but it's flat. Up here, the coil continues. Down here, it flattens out. And this right here is a pigtail end. So this is what we needed for the bottom, but we don't have it. We have this up here for our bottom. So this right here will set square on the bottom of this strut here. That's the way it was designed. It wasn't designed to have that much of a gap. So we had to basically improvise for that scenario. I'm looking for another spring. I had it around here somewhere. But so what we have to do, anybody interested in trying to make their own lowering springs. The problem with the lowering springs that I found is they're all within the same rating, and I can't find any stiffer for the racing application that I want done. So since the only ones I could find aren't even close, you know, they're at 300, I wanted 450s. So what you have to do here, the original spring itself is 14 inches long. So I took that as, let me buy some 14-inch springs and I'll cut them to fit. Well, I didn't know that I'd have to cut them as much as I did. I ended up having to cut these at 11 inches. So if you measure from this lip here, and you measure all the way down, and you find 11 inches, wherever 11 inches is, you don't want it at the top of the spring. You want 11 inches right in the center of that spring. So you can kind of see where I made my little mark right there. So I'm going to cut this spring. The spring will then drop completely over this. You won't have to use a spring compressor or none of that to get the spring on the strut. Now, the original thing I did was I put that spring on that strut. You have to compress it 3 inches to get it on there. That's 1,350 pounds worth of upward force that spring is already putting on that strut. When I did that and I put it on the car didn't lower at all. The car actually sat 5 inches higher. So we had to start cutting pieces off. So I started a half a loop at a time. You can see the pieces right there until I got the desired look and feel that I want. So I haven't been able to drive the car, so I don't know how it's going to handle. But I assume it should do all right. But I want to make sure that everything is right first. As long as I can get the height of the car correct to begin with, I should do all right. So the way the car's sitting right now with the Voglin springs, I set one Voglin is on the driver's side, and then I put this on the passenger side, and I keep lowering the car down on the ground to where they both measure the same height. I'm allowing this one to sit 1/4 of an inch higher than the other one, just due to the fact that the spring itself needs to get broken in. So once the spring gets broken in, I assume it should settle some. If not, I don't really care about the 1/4 of an inch. But I just want the car to be a little bit stiffer. So if anybody out there wants to do this, you have to do a few things. You have to get your spring and cut it to 11 inches. Don't cut it any more than that. You could cut it 11 and a half. You could even cut it 12, but then you're talking about the car being elevated off the ground more. But you'd have more of a stock rod height then. I'd say at 11 inches, you're going to have a 1.5, maybe 2-inch drop from whatever the factory was. You're going to have to build a little additional shelf here. All I did was I just took a piece of steel there, and I just bent it and welded it to the edge to give me about, I don't know, what is that, a 1/2 inch lip on the outside, just so that if the spring did pop off, it wouldn't continue to curl and wrap around this, because that can happen. Once I cut the spring and the pigtail itself could hop over it and start wandering its way around, and then it would, lose its ability. The other thing is you have to do the top hat. So if you can do that, that's great. What I would do is, I know on Summit they make springs that are 2.650 diameter on the inside. If you can find that, those are the perfect spring. If you can find a 2.650 or a 2.625, something like that, it's in between 2 3/4 and 2.5. They make them. I know they do because I've seen them. If you can find those in 11 inch and whatever spring rate you want, between 300 and 500, I would assume, because you can find lowering springs at 296, so there's no need to buy them any less than that. But you could make your car basically look like it has coilovers without the coilover. So that's kind of what I'm going for. I'm not doing it for the look. I'm trying to get some performance out of it to where the car will handle a little bit better. The car handled great. It would just bottom out in the dips in the racetrack. So when you hit an elevation change and you go downhill and you hit the bottom, the front of the car would like to bottom out. So that's what we're trying to take care of in this instance here. So once I get the suspension all done and all put on, I'll make a video of it driving, and I'll kind of give my yay or nay whether it worked or whether it didn't. And I'll post another video for anybody out there looking at suspension mods for a TL or a CL or whatever you have. But these are the Coney orange. You could get the yellows that are adjustable. I just can't have any adjustable suspension as far as now is concerned, just for the points value. So that's about all I've got for today. I'm gonna try to wrap this whole thing up here and head on home. It's getting kind of late. So thank y'all for watching the video. If you have any tips or any ideas, any videos you would like to see, just please comment in the comment box below. And if you can, hit the subscribe button. I really appreciate it. And I will try to put more videos out whenever I mess with the car here in the shop. Thank y'all for watching. Have a good day.